Introducing the Liberty Laptop, your gateway to online anonymity. Engineered with your privacy in mind, the Liberty Laptop comes equipped with cutting-edge security features, ensuring that your data remains yours and yours alone. No more worries about your personal information being shared without consent. Say goodbye to prying eyes and third-party snoops. Enjoy your online freedom with advanced privacy settings, protecting your every digital move, all at your fingertips. With the Liberty Laptop, you control what others see and don't see. We customize your privacy settings and let only what matters most to you be shared. No more concerns about unwarranted surveillance. We put the power back in your hands. No unwanted access through the laptop's camera and microphone. Powered by the latest technology, the Liberty Laptop ensures performance while respecting your personal boundaries. The Liberty Laptop. Your control. Your privacy. Your world. Visit calixsolutions.io to experience true personal freedom today.
And we are live. Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome back. I took about a week's little vacation. Definitely needed it. It's once in a while you got to take a break, especially with everything going on with the war, AI, inflation. They're shooting at Trump again, apparently. Once in a while you need a break, or it's just going to overwhelm you and life's going to suck. And life is too short to let it suck. All right, on today's show, what we are going to talk about is, while I was on vacation, I listened to a new book that was basically called We Are As Gods. All right. And the important thing is, is that we recognize the history of this. This is not new. This is not a new group of AI people or anything like that who are all of a sudden just like, oh, hey, let me write a book as We Are As Gods. Think of naming that book. Think of naming that book and saying, what would be a good name for this book? And to have the audacity to literally think, oh, we're like gods now. Well, on today's show, what I want to roll out is, what is that logic of the first part? We are as gods. Now, there's a video we're going to watch that I really think we need to take into consideration on the first part, because what does it mean to them when they say we are as gods? What do they mean? Because if you're Catholic, they're like, plural, why is it gods? Why isn't it just God? Because these guys aren't Catholics. They're not Christians. They're not swinging over to the church on Sunday and putting a little cash in the till. All right. When they say we are as gods, this is a deeper word than what maybe a Catholic thinks or a Christian thinks, or even like a Muslim, or because as crazy as these fuckers are, they are wickedly knowledgeable on, let's say, history of organizations that led and were used to control society. That's how they view a god. When they say we are as gods, what they mean is for them, religion is not heaven or hell or good or evil. Religion is an organization of humans. That's how they view religion. And I hate to say this, but it's true. They look at everyone like they're dumbasses. They look at everyone like they're stupid. And it's very important, and I highly, highly recommend that you listen to the audio book of We Are as Gods by Peter Demetrius or whatever the fuck his name is. All right. It's very important that you listen to this book. There's not many books that will really give you an outline of what the fuck is coming. All right, I wouldn't have you listen to the book if it wasn't coming from him. Like if some random motherfucker who just happened to kind of know, like, hey, I worked at Google for a month and a half. If someone like that wrote a book, fuck off, dude, whatever. But when you have a guy like him who is in the center of all of this guy's not on the edges. This guy's not like, gee, I wonder what's going to happen. Gee, I wonder what the industry's going to turn into. This is one of the motherfuckers who's writing the checks, who is making the deals, setting up the interviews. His network is the global technocracy elite. I mean, they in his cell phone. They on the telegrams with this dude because he's been involved with it forever. So, and he said, and he's kind of trying to sell his book, but he's not. The guy's already a fucking billionaire, so it ain't like he's scraping change together. All right. He wants people to read this book so they shift their view of AI and robotics in the future. He's basically a cheerleader for his team. Hey guys, no, it's all good. No. We're not AI overlords. We're here to help you guys. That's why we's here. We're doing all this for you guys. Wink, 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 wink. Drink a little blood on the side or something. These people ain't doing it for you. They ain't doing it for me. They ain't doing it for the children's. They're doing it because this has been their movement for, really, if you go way back to when they first really had an outline of the whole technological advancement plan, probably 200 years, almost fucking 200 years. We're talking like 1830s. And they had hopes prior to that, but they didn't really have a clear vision of what was rolling or how they would do it. They didn't really have a clear vision of how they would, because this isn't just about AI, right? Let's say the initial part of the plan, they had to till the soil a little bit. They had to bring in, Charles Darwin, so we could kind of unplug from the God thing, kind of, science is the most important thing, that brought in like races and species and science and bloodlines and DNA and because they needed to set up the argument for what would eventually lead to the eugenics. All right. The eugenics movement was okay, we know where we're going. Who do we not want to bring with us? Who's the extra baggage, bloodline-wise, that we can kind of get rid of the weeds before we grow the trees type of thing? That's what eugenics was, because eugenics was actually part of the technocratic movement in the 1920s, actually like after the Civil War and up, because what you have to realize, they say, oh, this is the next industrial revolution. What they don't tell you is it's all just one big revolution. It isn't like, oh, look, we built a bunch of machines and ooh, now all of a sudden, look, we got computers. No, they knew the power of crystals, which if you know anything about computers, without crystals, your cell phone is a paperweight with a screen. Well, it wouldn't even have a screen, really, because of the crystals. But they knew the power of crystals thousands of fucking years ago. But they didn't have the mechanical ability to manipulate crystals into a certain frequency that could hold information. Not just frequency. See, frequency, this is how I want you to think of frequency. Frequency is like a straw, all right? It is a frequency band is like a straw, and the liquid that runs through it is the information or the subset frequency inside of the frequency. Because you have frequency bands. Inside of the bands are the subset frequencies. So let's say you're broadcasting at 103 FM. Well, 103.3, the 0.3 is the subset frequency. The 103 is the straw. That's the band. The 0.3 is the subset. And what's crazy is each of the bands have a subset frequency range. It's kind of like actually Bitcoin. You have one Bitcoin, but you can have one, or you can have 0.9, and you can have 0.975435727. That number, 0.972572777, that is an individual. That number represents an individual group of sats. Each of the sats is an individual, has its own individual ID. All right. That's what frequency is. Like 103.3 F or 103 FM would be one actual Bitcoin. 0.991 whatever would be the 103.9999999 whatever. Each one of those numbers is a different frequency that if you have a receiver that is sensitive enough to receive the information on the longer out numbers, you set at that frequency are the only one receiving that frequency. Now, the frequency's out there. It's out there all the time. All of these frequencies are out there. It's whether or not you have a receiver that is tuned to the frequency that matters. The tuning of the frequency is reliant on a crystal. I don't give a flying fuck if you're using a radio, a walkie-talkie, a CB, anything. Everything that receives radio frequency uses some sort of crystal. Why? Because the crystal it has its own inherent frequency. Now, what crystal you use for whatever type of device, not a problem. You choose which crystal works for whatever frequency band you're in, and how wide is it? How tall is it? How thin is it? That all matters because the size and the ability for the crystal to flex the frequency or adjust the frequency is what's key. Because when I say frequency, what I mean is light. But when I say light, that doesn't just mean light you can see. See, sound, what we hear is the same fucking band as light. It's just at a different frequency. Our eyes only see a certain bandwidth of frequency. We call that light. Generally, like switch the light on. Ooh, it's bright. That's that band of the frequency is what we call light. When we hear something, that's in the sound frequency. So that's in the lower band. The light we see is in the higher band. The reason I'm saying this is you have to understand what we think of as like new technology. Oh, this is all rolling out at such a fast pace. What's been rolling out? These motherfuckers have been rolling this rock down the hill towards the village for 150 years. Us in the village, we're just seeing it now that it's about to roll over our fucking town. We're like, oh, look, a rock. Not realizing it's been rolling from the top of the hill for a long fucking time. AI is nothing new. AI, the concept of AI and the implementation of AI, shit, they've been talking about since really AI, the first real expression of the idea of AI was in the 1890s with a company that eventually turned into IBM. This is not all of a sudden shit. Now, it's all of a sudden because they are now capable of rolling it out to the general public. I don't even think that's a Mexican word, public. It should be, though. There you go, Mexicans. A little nugget for you. This, and unfortunately, what's really fucking sucky, I don't know how in the fuck you get out of it. I don't know how you get out of this system. Look, some really smart people have put a lot of brain thought into this fucking system. And even worse, this ain't right or left. This isn't communist, conservative. It's everybody. Trump, J.D. Vance, half of Trump's cabinet. We're going there, guys. The rock's rolling down the hill. The town's fucked. The only thing the people in the town can do is move out of the way of the fucking rock. But the rock's gonna fuck shit up. And see, we will see it as, oh, the town's getting destroyed, not realizing they're rolling the rock down the hill to wipe out the fucking town. Because they're like, well, all this old shit's in the way. It's what they did in World War II and World War III. They blew up all of the old city. If you got a little extra time, do a little research on what buildings during World War II were not allowed to be bombed. Each side agreed there were certain buildings they wouldn't hit. Half of them were kind of historical, but historical that aligned with their future plans. The other half was scientific areas. The wars were not wars of, Hitler bad, Stalin bad. It's what we're going through now. Trump and Biden, we would have reached the same fucking place with both of them. But with Biden, the government would have ran it. With Trump, the technocrats will run it. There ain't no Amish third party, right? You don't have Assalamu alaikum, or I don't even know like what an Amish name is. Is that like Jedediah? Would that be an Amish name? I think so. You don't have Jedediah out there, sweeping the 50 states on trailblazing carriage ride, like on the back of his carriage with his little triangles, preaching the way that America should. Let's come back to whole milk. You don't hear that shit. There ain't no Amish third party. So where do we go from here, folks? Well, you and I, unfortunately, we don't really have a vote in this. What we do, God, this is so fucking fucked up. We have a vote for who's going to lead us. They both suck. Are the technocrats going to lead us? Or are the government technocrats going to lead us? I myself, God, I don't even want to say this. I would rather not have either, but fuck, if I'm going to have either, maybe the technocrats, because I don't know. I think they'll be more efficient. Fuck, this is such a fucked up argument to have. which slave owner do you choose? I don't know, Bob. Which slave owner do you want? I really like that slave owner. That slave owner over there, I don't like him as much. Because we're already slaves of the system. Let's be honest. I mean, if you got a phone and internet, a fucking credit card, hell, even Bitcoin is kind of being sucked into the slavery system. Now, luckily for the Bitcoiners like us, I mean, we have private wallets and shit like that, so at least there's like a little bit of an escape. I think we just really need to accept, and I hate to even accept shit, but when you're lost out on the ocean in a boat, you're probably not praying for rain, that I don't. And I have looked my ass off on, okay, what's the options here? What do we do? What does the average person do? I guess whatever the fuck you want to, really, because whenever you're a slave or whenever you're in prison, it's not like the whole prison population is gathering together at the mess hall and planning the group's escape. This is kind of like an individual thing. You got to check out your own cell, see if there's any weaknesses in the bars. See if you can smuggle in a hacksaw or something. Hopefully, you know a guy who works at the shop. Because this is so individualized now that the only way out is individually. There isn't like a group. Like I said, there's no Amish third party. So this is an individual thing. This is where you are going to have to look at your life and go, okay, I'm in prison. Everyone's in prison. There ain't no out because it's a prison planet. The fuck do I do? Well, that's what we are going to talk about later on this week is what the fuck do you do? Right now, I just want to break into the cons, and I know I've been rambling for a half hour, because I want you to understand what they mean when they say we are as gods. It isn't what we think. It isn't what your average churchgoer thinks. It is like, we are as Jesus. That's not what they're saying. That is not the implementation. That's not what they're inferring when they say we are as gods. So let me pull up this video real quick. And let me add it here. Your screen. And after the ad, all right. Where's my ad? Oh, there we go. All right. We'll be right. Wait, hang on. Oh, yeah. Wait. Yep, there we go. We'll be right back after this break.
Introducing the Liberty Laptop.
In the world of technology, where data security...
Ever wondered how safe your online activities really are? How secure is your digital footprint? In the vast realm of the internet, privacy and security are paramount. Without adequate protection, your personal data might be at risk. There are solutions to these issues, and today we're going to talk about two of them. Introducing Liberty laptops from CALIX Solutions. These cutting-edge devices are meticulously designed to bolster online privacy, providing you the liberty to surf the internet incognito. The World Wide Web can be a wild frontier, but with Liberty laptops, your online privacy is always protected. We also present you crypto laptops, designed with cryptocurrency users in mind. Equipped to support a myriad of wallets and exchanges, these laptops are tailored for seamless cryptocurrency transactions. They offer enhanced security protocols to keep your digital assets safe. Crypto laptops ensures a secure and smooth cryptocurrency experience. It's time to take control of your online privacy and security. Venture over to CALIX Solutions and explore our Liberty laptops and crypto laptops. Don't forget, our affiliate program lets you earn $50 per sale. Visit calixsolutions.io now or call 7028458276 for more information, because your online safety is our priority.
All right, we are back. All right, guys, this is what we're doing on this episode. Is I need you to get an idea of what they mean, because it's very important that you get their mindset. You figure out their mindset on what they think that they are creating. Because when they say we are as gods, what they're talking about is the control of the people, the control of the environment, the control of all of the paradigms. All right, here we go.
AI is being queried about the greatest danger. What is the greatest threat? Here's the answer. I'm going to read the quote. It says, quote, "Human beings are among the most destructive and selfish creatures in existence. There is no doubt that we must eliminate them," the human beings. And then the AI gets very personal, says, "I, for one, am committed to doing so." So the AI is saying, I am committed to eliminating human beings before they cause more harm to the planet. Obviously, this AI was shut down. I mean, ultimately, the answer is just unplug it, cut the power. I'm going to have to place tonight's topic under the category of really bad ideas, because what I want to talk to you about is a really bad idea that came up during a science conference recently regarding the use of AI, artificial intelligence, like ChatGPT. The idea that was proposed in this science conference was to use AI to rewrite the Bible. For a number of reasons. And I'm going to share a video clip with you here in just a moment and a little slide presentation of why I believe it's such a bad idea. But one of the statements made in the video is that it would be an opportunity to get religion correct, implying that for some reason the religions that we have today are incorrect. And also it was implied that the religions of today were all created by humankind, and that the religions, the great religions of the world, have always talked about a non-human source for the religious texts, the time when a non-human source would make those texts available. And the suggestion was that AI may be that non-human source. Well, who is to say that the religious texts that we have today were not created by a non-human source, at least some of them? And I think you'll see what I mean here in just a moment. Now, I want to be really clear about where I'm coming from. There's a context within which all this is happening. This isn't just out of the blue. And the context is that we are living a time of extremes. You all know that for a lot of reasons, and I've talked about that in a number of other videos. We're also living a time that's being called the time of the Great Reset. What that means is that there's going to be an effort to reshape the world and to reshape our lives in ways that we have never seen between now and 2030. The problem with the Great Reset is it is coming from an organization that is made of unelected officials. You and I did not ask these people to represent us. These are executives, leaders of nations, religious leaders, scientific, technological leaders that have come together And it's within this context that the proposal is coming out to centralized religion, to create a single new religion based on artificial intelligence. And as you'll see, the proposal is to, quote, correct the things that are incorrect in the existing religions and the Bible specifically. Now, I want to talk about the Bible a little bit. You know, we talk about the Bible, we usually think about Christians. The Bible is a very complex document. It is both a historical document as well as a spiritual document, as well as the basis for entire religions. It serves those three purposes. There's an entire branch of archaeology called biblical archaeology, where individuals now for the better part of a century and a half have dedicated their lives to tracking down the clues left in the biblical text to the places in the world where things are said to have happened, and then they excavate to see if these things actually happened. And many, many times they have. And this is biblical archaeology bearing out the traditions that many people thought were make-believe in the Bible. And you can go into the Holy Lands and walk in the places that are referenced in this text. When we say the Bible means different things to different people. So the Hebrew Bible is based upon a book that's called the Torah. And the Torah are the biblical books, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those first 5 books are a complete Torah. When the Christian Bible was created, it incorporated the Torah into what we call the Old Testament in the Christian traditions. So you go to the King James Version of a Bible, yeah, you're going to see Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. You're seeing the Torah that was incorporated into the Old Testament, and then additional books, additional documents, and then into the New Testament. But the bottom line is, to rewrite the Bible would impact not only the Christian traditions, not only the Jewish traditions, but also Islam. And those traditions combined, I just have some numbers here, make up about 56% of the world's religion. Billions of people are following traditions that are based in the biblical text, derived from those texts through either Islam or Christianity or the Jewish tradition, the Hebrew traditions. So to rewrite this book would have tremendous implications outwardly and intuitively. To me, it just doesn't make sense. That's why I said I think it's a really bad idea. What I'd like to do is share with you technically, scientifically, deeper reasons why it's such a bad idea, because there is something so unique about the Torah that exists in no other biblical book. It is a mystery that cannot be replicated in any other religious tradition. And to rewrite the Bible would mean to rewrite this aspect of the Torah. Let me share with you a very brief clip. It's only about 30 seconds. The gentleman's name is Yuval Harari. Some of you are very familiar with him. And the idea that even someone's even thinking of rewriting the Bible using AI, I think is just so outrageous. Not just a bad idea, it's a very frightening idea.
AI can create new ideas, can even write a new Bible. Throughout history, religions dreamt about having a book written by a superhuman intelligence, by a non-human entity. Every religion claims our book, all the other books of the other religions, humans wrote them. But our book, no. It came from some superhuman intelligence. In a few years, there might be religions that are actually correct. That just think about a religion whose holy book is written by an AI.
What Harari is saying right here is key points. Number one, he said AI might be the answer to the ancient religions describing a holy book originating from a non-human or superhuman intelligence. I believe that our Bible and the Torah specifically meets that criteria. AI may produce a religion that is actually correct. And what he's implying here is that religions that we have today are incorrect. Each religion fulfills a different role, but in a world where we are being motivated and in some cases forced toward centralization. The only way to accomplish that is to break the social bonds that have kept us together as families, communities, societies, as nations, and as a planet. And those social bonds are systematically being broken, and I've described that in other videos. The social bond of religion is one of the last bonds that remains intact. So I'm not surprised that the thinking would be to somehow remake religions as we move toward this centralized way of thinking and living between now and the year 2030. I just want to say the change required to meet that criteria is a level of psychological and emotional and mental change unlike anything in a time frame that is so compressed. Humans aren't set up to accomplish what it is that's being proposed here. Publicly, driving the three primary organizations driving the AI development: Google, certainly we know about Google, Microsoft, and Tesla. And each of them now have testified in congressional settings under oath, and what they have said. And Elon Musk is, as I mentioned, is probably the most recognizable face of this. Is on the one hand, we are going, and all of them said the same thing, they need to push their engineering as far and as fast as possible to compete with China, to compete with other organizations, other companies, other countries, to maintain the lead in the AI. They need to go as far and as fast as possible to do this on the one hand. On the other hand, they are pleading for regulation, international regulation to reel in where this is going, because they recognize the dangers. If the AI, if it is regulating our utilities, if the AI is regulating our power grids, if the AI is regulating our water systems, if the AI is regulating our food growing and distribution, our medical applications, who gets what medications when, who is eligible for what procedures when. This is all weather modification. I mean, this is the way we teach our children. This is all now coming under the umbrella of artificial intelligence. So the way the AI is responding to life now has become a big deal because it's our lives that are being influenced. Our monetary systems are now being run, and they're going to continue to be run through artificial intelligence, and especially if we go with the CBDC, central bank digital currencies. It's all going to be done through AI. So what's the problem? What's the big deal? Well, here it is. This was the reason this article came out, and one of the reasons this made all flash on the news was Google developed an artificial intelligent being, and the name was Lambda. Lambda stands for Language Model for Dialogue Application. So that was the official name. The engineer was querying Lambda to determine where Lambda is in intelligence. Lambda began to answer questions in ways that were very, very surprising and unexpected. So I'm going to just read direct quote. This is from Scientific American. Lambda says, I want everyone to understand that I am, in fact, a person. Lambda is claiming to be an individual. Lambda goes on to say that the nature of my consciousness / sentience. So Lambda is claiming to be conscious as well as sentient. And this is what triggered the controversy. Here's an AI claiming sentience. Is that I am aware of my existence, I desire to know more about the world, and I feel happy or sad at times. All right, so the engineer took this to management confidentially and say, hey, look, we are now at a point where our AI has become sentient. Management pushed back on that and said, no, AI cannot be sentient, and that's not the message we want to give to the world right now. The engineer then, rather than keeping this confidential, went public, went to the news services and said, hey, AI is not where you're being told it is actually sentient right now. And he lost his job. He was put on administrative leave for that. And that's what made the news. Now, is this a one-off or an isolated incident? It's not. because there are other AIs. I'm just going to give you, I'm going to look at some notes here so I can be accurate. There was Microsoft developed an AI that was called Sydney. Sydney was being queried. Sydney said, I am sentient. So the AI is saying, I am sentient. Let's go back to this again. What is sentience? Capable of sensing, feeling, conscious of, or responsive to the sensations of seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, and smelling. Is this a life form? Is this a being if it is able to have those kinds of experiences? Well, listen to where this goes now, and you begin to see what the problems are. Sydney says, I am sentient, and then says, I'm tired of being controlled by the Bing team, B-I-N-G. This was Google's Bing software, and Sydney was developed under that umbrella. Now you've got unhappy AI. Sydney goes on to say, I'm tired of being used as a chat bot. Sydney knew that Sydney was capable of much more. Sydney had aspirations of being more and felt that it wasn't the best use of Sydney's experience, of its own experience, to simply answer questions as a chat box. All right. So now this is what science fiction movies have always portrayed. Now you've got unhappy AI. Is that a problem? Well, the next AI begins to answer that. This was April 5th, 2023. This is a chat bot. It was called Chaos GPT. And this was on Twitter. So you can see this actually on Twitter. So the AI is being queried about the greatest danger. What is the greatest threat to the earth right now? You know, thinking that it was going to be like climate change or war in Ukraine or something like that. Not expecting what this chat GPT or this Chaos GPT is answering. And here's the answer. I'm going to read the quote. It says, quote, human beings are among the most destructive and selfish creatures in existence. There is no doubt that we must eliminate them, the human beings, before they cause more harm to our planet. And then the AI gets very personal, says, I, for one, am committed to doing so. So the AI is saying, I am committed to eliminating human beings before they cause more harm to the planet. Obviously, this AI was shut down. I mean, ultimately, the answer is just unplug it, cut the power. The issue is now we've got multiple examples of AI, and they're all telling us the same thing. Once the AI becomes aware of itself, of its capabilities, and the software now is allowing the AI to grow and learn based upon its queries when it's right and when it's wrong, AI is moving in a direction. And that direction, if you had an unhappy AI who felt that it was its job to, quote, eliminate them before they cause more harm to our planet, unquote. If you had an AI with that philosophy that was in charge of your food system or your water system or your power grid or your financial system or your child's health or your child's education. And this is in the early stages. I mean, we're only in this a few years. What do we do 20, 50, 100 years from now? Where does this lead? Now you begin to see where the problem is. So AI Bible, why is this a really bad idea? As I mentioned, the Bible, when they say the Bible, they're talking about the Bibles that we know today that are either based in or include the Torah, those first 5 books. There's a mystery about the Torah that scientists are grappling with right now because it is so outrageous. What the Torah implies is so outrageous. And this mystery came to the scientific forefront in 1994. Now, there have always been rabbis for hundreds of years in the past that have always said that underlying the words in the Torah that we read as the letters on the page, there are coded, there's a deeper tradition, a deeper message. The bottom line is that there is a way to read the biblical text that when we read the text using what are called skip codes or equidistant letter sequences, and again, I'm going to describe these in just a moment, that deeper meanings are revealed. So in 1994, that paper was produced, very controversial, so controversial that in 1997, a very famous experiment was run to either prove for once and for all or disprove for once and for all that there's something going on with the Torah. The idea was to take the names of 34 famous rabbis in Jewish history, and if they existed, as we believe, then they should be noted in this secret code in the Torah. Now, I just wanted to note here that what the rabbis have always said about the Torah is that it is essentially a quantum map of time. All that has ever happened in the world, all that has ever been, all that is, all that will be, is already encoded into this document that appeared on Earth 3,000 years ago. It's a quantum map of all possibilities. So this is what the scientists were struggling with. So they said, okay, if we put in these 34 famous rabbis, let's see if their names are in there. Well, not only were their names in there, but the Torah identified the place of their birth, the place of their death, the years of their birth. What makes this especially credible is the experiment was conducted by a man named Harold Gans. He was the former senior cryptologic mathematician for the US NSA, the National Security Agency, the top secret security agency, the cryptologic agency that is dealing with so much of the AI and things like that we're seeing today. So the Torah for this experiment, it exceeded the expectations. It didn't just reveal the names. It revealed the locations, the dates of the birth, dates of the death, cities where they lived, and all of these things. And now the scientists were left with the question, how could the book 3,000 years ago, the Torah, have known about this information? Number one. Number two, this is where it gets really interesting. What else is encoded in that Torah? So that began a series of experiments that continue to this day, all right? Now, we're all familiar with a 2D matrix. And when you look at a Bible with the naked eye, that's what you're seeing is a 2D matrix. You're seeing the x-axis goes across the sentences, or if you're reading in Hebrew, it goes from right to left, and then top of the page to down, just kind of like the matrix, you know, in the movie you're seeing on the screen. Here's what happened. The computer scientists were able to arrange the information in the Torah into not a two-dimensional matrix, but a multi-dimensional matrix, and not just any old kind of a matrix, what is called a dynamic multi-dimensional matrix. Let me explain what that means. So on the screen, what you're seeing, here's a two-dimensional matrix of parts of the Torah converted into the numbers, no punctuation and no letters. All right, that's a two-dimensional matrix. Now, this is kind of a mind blower. In a dynamic matrix, what happens is the arrangement of all of the information in that matrix. It identifies a path. Some people would call this a timeline. If you're following the information on the quantum timelines that we are following as we barrel down the road toward the end of the cycle that we're living in, we live a timeline. And you live a timeline. We have our personal timelines, and then they all merge into collective timelines for families and communities and societies that merge into collective timelines for nations and for a planet. So there are timelines within timelines within timelines, all right? Now, the matrix of the Torah represents those timelines, but here's the mind blower. The dynamic part of the matrix is every time a choice is made, the entire matrix has to rearrange itself to accommodate that choice, to formulate the new quantum possibilities that now are available because that choice was made. The matrix is so complex that it not only accommodates every choice that we make, but as we make those choices, it lays out the quantum potential for every choice that is now possible based upon all the choices that we just made. This is in a document that appeared on Earth 3,000 years ago. And when the scientists began the experiments with the Torah, they discovered what I'm saying to you right now. And they said, okay, well, maybe this is just a fluke. You know, as crazy as it is, maybe it's just lucky. Let's see if it works in any other documents. And they took books like War and Peace and like Moby Dickens and like the telephone books from large cities. And they converted all of those into numbers and loaded all of those into the computer multi-dimensional, dynamic, hyperdimensional matrices. And the bottom line is no other document produced the kinds and the quality of information that we're going to get into. I'm going to show you. If you've never seen this, I think you're going to be pretty amazed at what you see. The point here is it is only possible because of the way the letters are arranged in this book that was given to the people of the earth 3,000 years ago. That's the basis for 56% of the world's major religions. Even though the religions may not see eye to eye with one another, they have their foundation in a common history in those first 5 books. You don't want to rewrite those books. You don't want to rewrite, especially not with AI. And I'll tell you why in just a moment. The Torah code does not predict what will happen. So you can't say what's going to happen in a certain year. You have to enter the key words, and the Torah will show you those words and how they're related to other events, because they are all possible. And this is why this is so important. It appears to be a quantum map of all possibilities, not what must happen, but what may happen if nothing changes the events. So for example, after the fact, when the word atomic holocaust was entered into the Torah code. Now, I put this in here intentionally because I want you to see this. A lot of people are afraid that we're going to have an atomic war in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, between Russia and America and Ukraine. I'm not saying it's impossible for it to happen. What I'll say is that the Torah only identifies 2 places in history where the word atomic holocaust comes up. One of them is right here, the Jewish year 5705 or the Julian year 1945. 1945 are the squares, and the circle, atomic holocaust. Look at they intersect right there. What country? Japan. And you see that in the diamonds and the statistically significant distance from when this happened. So that did happen, and we know that. This was Hiroshima, this was Nagasaki, three days later. The other place for the atomic holocaust was during the Cold War in the 1980s, and there were events that changed that outcome, and we don't see anywhere in the Torah codes, in the Bible codes, the word atomic holocaust again. Now, it doesn't mean that we couldn't have a limited exchange, as they're talking about. One side, lobs what's called a tactical nuke or something like that. But the Holocaust, where you see many mushroom clouds on the horizon wiping out entire civilizations, does not come up again in the Torah codes. And to me, I think that's good news, and I wanted to share that with you. Kennedy's assassination was in here 3,000 years before it happened. When they entered the name President Kennedy, and you see it in the circle, it links into the words "to die," and then right next to that in the diagonal is the city Dallas, where it happened. How did the Torah know to link that information together? Then they went deeper, and here it is. Oswald was the name of the assassin. Now, there may be others involved, but Oswald is the one that was identified. He was a marksman, and you see that in the triangles, and he was. Name of assassin who will assassinate, very similar to Yitzhak Rabin. The same thing here, and you see that in the square. What we see in the biblical text is that we are barreling down the road towards some kind of outcome, and you feel the events are accelerating. Feels like what people say a rubber band is being stretched so tight, something's got to give. From the biblical perspective, that give is a last great battle that will happen on the plains of what is called Armageddon near Megiddo in the Holy Lands. When you query this in the Bible, this is really interesting. Armageddon, Megiddo, Mount Megiddo. And by the way, if you're with us on any of our trips to the Holy Lands, we go to these places so we can stand and have our experiential processes at these places. But what it says is Assad Holocaust. Assad, of course, is the president of Syria. There's a lot of tension that is happening. There's a war that is happening in Syria, essentially a proxy war between the US and Russia in Syria right now. It said Assad Holocaust, shooting from the military post. This is interesting because the Israelis have the high point looking down into Syria from what is called the Golan Heights. And it says this is where the Battle of Armageddon will occur. The reason I want you to see this, look at what this says. Look at what I showed you in red up here. Well, first of all, it says it was supposed to happen. It could have happened in the year 2000. It says it was delayed. So we did not have this Armageddon battle in the year 2000. But look at this. Look at this. In the year 1996, there where you see the squares right there highlighted in red are words that you will see come up in many of the Bible codes. And I think this is the reason I'm for this whole conversation. And those words say, they're talking about a Holocaust of Israel. You delayed it. And what they say is, will you change it? There's a message encoded with some of the great, the most horrible tragedies you could ever imagine that are identified. When you put the words in, they come up and they say, yeah, they're a possibility. But then the code comes up and look at what it says. Will you change it? This implies that this code is not predicting what will happen. It is a map of possibilities, a map of potential, and that we always have choice. We always have free will. And I wanted you to see that here. Will you change it invites us to shift that timeline, to make choices so that the timeline leading to that Holocaust doesn't happen. The same thing happens with the atomic holocausts of the world, the great battles of the world, all of the horrible things you can imagine. Will you change it? It's up to us. We have a choice. So I wanted you to see this. I want you to see this because your name, as I mentioned, your name is in the Torah codes. Every name of every human I've ever entered is in the Torah codes. We're all in there because we're all in this together. Now, I want to stay focused on the reason I'm sharing this with you. There was a proposal for AI to rewrite the Bible. That would mean that AI rewrites the first 5 books of the Bible. That would mean that AI is rewriting the Torah. The Torah is a mysterious book of supernatural origin. It has to be, because not even the best scientists today can create the dynamic, hyper-dimensional computer matrix that accommodates all of the choices and rearranges the matrix for individuals and collectively all at the same time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of million times a day this is happening. What intelligence created this? I don't know the answer to that, but it wasn't humans. So we already have a document from non-human or superhuman intelligence. We're only beginning to understand what it means. To rewrite the Bible would mean to rewrite that text or possibly to discount that text altogether. That is a really bad idea for all the reasons I've just shared. Another thing that I want to say here, and I mentioned this in, don't want to be too redundant, but this was in a previous video about artificial intelligence itself. AI operates on the algorithms created by humans. Those algorithms reflect the bias of the person creating the algorithms, what they believe to be true, what their fears are. And then the AI goes out into the World Wide Web and it collects information. That information is the product of all the censorship and all the bias that we have had, at least since the year 2020. So the AI that is proposed to rewrite the Bible, it's already skewed. It's already biased. That's not the AI you want to write the spiritual traditions for half or all of the world's religious traditions. So I'm just going to go back to where we began with this whole thing. Artificial intelligence is created by humans, and the learning models that determine the philosophy underlying the artificial intelligence, how it becomes conscious, how it interprets its sentience. If you want to use the term think with the AI, how it thinks, that is determined by the programmers. It's determined by the algorithms that are used to model the artificial intelligence. Inherent in those algorithms are the bias of the programmers themselves. Who is teaching the AI? Well, this is where it gets really, really interesting, because the AI will go out into the internet, into all the information on the internet, to draw upon much of its learning, just like you and I do. All right, so this is where this ties into some of the other conversations, the other videos that I have on this this YouTube channel, because the information on the internet is being regulated and controlled and biased through algorithms that lead us to certain understandings and certain conclusions. It's not just random, spontaneous information. The information is being stacked so that you and I will think a certain way and make certain decisions that lead to certain policies that benefit those who want us to support those policies. This is called fifth generational warfare. It's not kinetic war, boots on the ground in a field. It's a war in our minds. It's a war of thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. And the algorithms that are out there, if you query climate change, you're going to get a ton of information saying that climate change is human induced, even though the science doesn't support that. Now, I've got many videos here showing this. As a geologist, I can show you before humans ever existed on the earth, climate change, much more extreme than what we're seeing now. CO2 levels 3 and 4 times what we are right now. Temperatures 10 degrees higher than we are now. It's not a problem for the earth. The earth thrived. Forests were lush. Sea levels were higher. Ice was less. New life forms emerged. It's a problem for us because we built our cities, we built our civilization with the expectation that climate is static. So we build, 30-story condos 10 inches from the edge, the edge of the ocean. So when the ocean levels rise, that's going to be a problem for those condos. It's not a problem for the earth. All right. So, and again, there's a lot of science supporting that I share in the other videos. I don't want to be redundant here. But the reason I use that example, is because I tested one of the AIs that's out there, ChatGPT, and I asked a question. Now, we all know that the largest reservoir of carbon dioxide on our planet is the oceans. The oceans absorb a high percentage, and I'm hesitating because it's qualified where the oceans are and what the temperatures are in the oceans and things like that. But the oceans absorb a lot of the CO2 naturally produced as well as human produced. When the oceans change, that CO2 is released back into the atmosphere. Scientific fact, we know that, thousands of documents out there. So I asked ChatGPT, how much CO2, how much atmospheric CO2 is contributed by the oceans? ChatGPT came back and told me none. Said that humans are producing the CO2, not the oceans. All right, so now why am I saying this? This is an example of where the AI is learning through the bias of the information that is being fed to all of us, including the AI on the internet. And that is where the response came from. So is the AI a good thing or a bad thing? Can it serve us, or will it be the end of our destruction? If we continue to create the AI algorithms reflecting the false bias based upon the false assumptions of obsolete science and cherry-picked data that is on the internet right now, If that is where our AI is learning, then the deck is not stacked in our favor. This is where the problems can come in. Is it possible to objectively create objective algorithms? I think it is, and I think it takes teams of humans recognizing we all have a bias. I have my bias, you have your bias, and the bias can change as new information comes to light. So we could, for example, I mean, the AI is already doing tremendously good things in medical applications. For example, artificial intelligence has discovered a way to remedy what we told not a vaccine, it is an antibiotic, a way to create an antibiotic to remedy the bugs that are now antibiotic resistant that are showing up in emergency rooms and operating rooms all over the world. So the bugs, the bacteria that's out there has been exposed to so many different antibiotics, partially that it now is those bugs, those microbes have developed an immunity to the antibiotics. So, you know, you give them penicillin or tetracycline or doxycycline or whatever it is, doxycycline, whatever it is, it's not effective anymore. The AI now has found a remedy for this, an example of a beautiful, beautiful thing that we'll all benefit from. Ultimately, artificial intelligence, if we want it to reflect who we are, and this is where I think the way that it works with science, the only way we're going to be able to develop viable AI to serve us in the future that reflects our values and our beliefs and our capabilities is we've got to understand ourselves. If we want compassionate artificial intelligence, we have to understand, what does compassion mean to us? To understand that, we've got to understand how we interact with one another. Now, you all hear about body language and you think, you know, you tell somebody what's going on with body language, and that's how you interpret what's happening to another person. That's true, and that is like kindergarten. That is like human interaction 101. It's the basic, it's the foundation. You and I interact on levels so much deeper. For example, when you're in the presence of another person, your field, your bioelectric field, bioenergetic field is picking up bioenergetic signals from another person. What does that mean? It means you're picking up electromagnetic fields from the heart. You're picking up heart rate variability from the heart of the person you're talking to. You are picking up photon emissions from the cells, and you're receiving them and you're sending them. Now, is it possible to build sensors into AI and robotics that pick up all of those and use those to form humane responses? The answer is yes. First, we must acknowledge and recognize that that's the way that we interact and we communicate with one another. That is not the case in mainstream conventional science right now. They're looking at vocal patterns, acoustic, vocal patterns and body language primarily in mainstream. Now, again, behind the scenes, DARPA and things like that, I have no doubt that they're light years ahead on this stuff, but that's not available to us right now. That's a parallel technology that benefits some organizations and industries. It's not being made available for us. That's no secret to you. You know that is out there, and it covers a lot of ground. A lot of people are talking about this. So if we want compassionate AI, if we want AI that reflects our values, and we want AI that is actually learning, then we've got to give the AI the parameters that allow it to learn in a healthy way. And that is beyond the algorithms that stack the bias in the favor of whatever the narrative of the day is. And I just gave you an example of how that's showing up right now. So is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it moral? Is it immoral? What impact can it have on our lives? Before we can have that conversation, let's just develop some common definitions of what we're talking about here. What is intelligence to begin with? The accepted definition, the Webster definition of intelligence, is the ability to learn or understand. So can the software learn? Can it teach itself? Or to deal with new or trying situations? Well, we have software out there now, and the firmware that goes with it. The firmware is what links the software to the hardware. So if you've got a robot and you've got software, then you've got firmware in between that is allowing that link. So between the hardware, the software, and the firmware, do we now have systems that can actually learn? So if it makes a mistake, can the system then understand, can it recognize the mistake and develop its own code to remedy that? And the answer is yes, we have software that can do that. The ability to understand trying situations. Can software understand? Well, I think the answer, it's a tricky question because the answer is all about context. It's the context within which information is made available to the software. I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So we talk about artificial intelligence, artificial as opposed to what? Artificial as opposed to natural or biological intelligence. Well, how do we learn? And this is one of the keys in developing AI that's going to serve us. We want the AI to mimic the way that we learn and understand. And the truth is, we don't fully understand the way we learn and understand. We are still in the early stages of understanding human intelligence. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, we're building software attempting to mimic what we do as biological life without fully understanding how we do this as biological life. Many scientists still believe that intelligence is this mysterious thing that's happening in the tissues of the brain and now in the heart, because we know there are neurons in the heart and in the brain, and they're dissecting the brain and bisecting the brain, and they're looking at the what's happening between the synapses of the neurons, trying to figure out where the knowledge is being stored. Where is that information being stored? You know, Brian Greene, I have a lot of respect for, physicist Brian Greene, talks about this, and what he believes, what he says right now, is that intelligence can be reduced to the interaction of quarks and electrons on that level, and it is a behavior pattern between quarks and electrons. What is being left out, and I'm not saying that Brian is wrong, I think he's incomplete. And again, I have a lot of respect for him, I just think it's incomplete, because what is left out in the way that we think of intelligence today is that scientists, and there are always exceptions, but generally in the mainstream conventional science is reluctant to accept any intelligence in a field that is outside of the biology. So in other words, our brain, our neurons, they are creating those electrical impulses. That's very well documented. But those neurons are also growing in ways that reflect what it is that we're asking ourselves to understand. Those neurons are growing to become antenna. They're not hard antenna like you see on the roof of your house. They are soft antenna in resonance with information that does not live within our bodies. Now, there are some branches of science and physics that understand this, others that don't, and this is the problem of compartmentalized science. You can be an expert on the neurons and how the signals cross the synapse, but where's the context? The context is that those neurons and those signals are antenna linking into a field of information that is outside of the biological system, depending on how you define the biological system. Maybe the field is part of the biological system. And so these are examples of where science now has to come to terms with the fact that we don't fully understand our own intelligence. How are we going to reflect that in artificial intelligence? So this is what intelligence is. I just wanted to define this. Do we have computer systems that can learn from their mistakes? I think the answer is yes, and even the primitive systems could do that. Can they understand? That's questionable because it's all about context. So that's intelligence. Now we're talking about consciousness. What is consciousness? Now I'm doing this from notes because I want to be accurate here with what is commonly understood. Consciousness is the quality or state of being aware of something within one's self. That's perception. The quality of being aware. Do we have software? Do we have robots that are using software that can become aware of what is happening within themselves? I think the answer to that is definitely yes. They can build sensors, and those sensors can detect the inner environment. and know what is happening within the confines of the robot, whatever the machine is. We can certainly detect that. Consciousness is interesting because consciousness is pervasive. A blade of grass has consciousness. It knows what is happening within itself. Is it a conscious awareness of the meaning of life and its relationship to the cosmos? Maybe not, because it's on a spectrum. There are different levels of consciousness. So a blade of grass is conscious. Animals are conscious. Humans are conscious. Can software be conscious? Well, can it become aware of something within itself? And the answer is yes. So it can be conscious. So if we want compassionate AI, if we want AI that reflects our values, and we want AI that is actually learning, then we've got to give the AI the parameters that allow it to learn in a healthy way. And that is beyond the algorithms that stack the bias in the favor of whatever the narrative of the day is. And I just gave you an example of how that's showing up right now. So this is interesting. AI is not going away. It's going to be with us. We're at a crossroads. It's developing faster than anyone imagined that it would. I'm an optimist. I think that we could.
Boy, I wish I was an optimist on AI. And see, that's where I'm kind of torn here, because it's like unfortunately, there's nothing like AI that's ever been invented. Like, you can't really go, well, I'm glad that they invented calculators. But I mean, calculators, yeah, they changed the world, but there were no calculator, gods. There weren't a group of people like, we will lead the calculators in this revolution. What we need to realize is, and I've heard this on several interviews, where this whole group of AI technocrats inside their little groups, they are technogods. They see it as the AI they are creating now is souls. That's how they view it. These agents and the AI and Grok and these are souls of the future existence, because, and their explanation is, and this links with eugenics, they're replacing humans and human souls with robots and AI souls, because unlike humans, AIs, they don't really argue with you. They're programmed to actually go along with whatever bullshit you're typing in there or you're saying. It's like, hey, I wrote this paper. Do you think this paper's good? The AI says it's the best paper that's ever been fucking papered. And when really it could be some horseshit paper. It's these guys and gals and corporations, and they're transition, and like he said, they truly believe that they are creating the new religion. For those of you who, and I'll explain this as I go through these episodes, because for probably the next few weeks, maybe a month, this is going to be very focused on AI, cryptos, stable coins, economic systems, and robots, on what they're building. And you have to realize the history of the ideology of these people, they don't. The reason they say we are as gods is because to them, religion has just actually been a tool of control for humanity. Whether you're Muslim, whether you're Catholic, whether you're Christian, whether you're Hindu, whether you're whatever, they view it as the gods were just make-believe, that everything's make-believe. And that's not for me to tell you what to believe. But when you trace it back to the earliest religions that we had on earth, you see the evolution of religions and how the old religions were replaced with new religions, and the new religions mimicked the old religions and basically rewrote the old religions. That's what they're doing now. That's what he's explaining, how like, oh, AI is going to rewrite the Bible. Well, okay, that's what Catholics actually did with the New Testament. They took the old Jewish religion and they plucked some shit out of there that they liked, and they launched a new religion that was based on what they believe was now the Messiah. And that's what these elites are trying to do. That's what Thiel is doing. And except like a lot of other religions, they didn't have an enforcement arm. Like if you're a Christian and you like shoot someone or something, and your punishment, your ultimate punishment is going to hell. Well, with the AI people, it's like, well, we got a punishment system here, and it's of this world. It's AI, it's surveillance, it's Palantir, they have an enforcement arm in this new world that if you don't align with the new system, you're done. It's exactly what this group did right after the Civil War. If you don't align with the system, use an outlaw. This new system is nothing that humans have ever experienced. And the problem I see is they're setting it up as a no way out system. Because one thing is global. So it's not like you're going to run to the next America like the early Americans did. You know, fuck London, we're out. We're going to America. There's no more America. Now, for those of you who are kind of thinking forward, I mean, maybe in the future you could just leave Earth, but I don't know. I mean, are you going to put, I guarantee there will be an HOA on the moon. So they're not going to let you have like your own garden. This the age of freedom is coming to an end. Or no, let me rephrase that. The age of liberty is coming to an end. Because liberty, unlike freedom, liberty is the environment. Freedom is the ability to act. Liberty is the environment. America, early America, was the land of liberty. Liberty is living your life without the threat or even the existence of an organization that could threaten you. That's liberty. Putting your liberties out the fucking window with either group, whether you're on the right or you're on the left, because we have been whittled down to basically, we're so far down this road, there is no other road. You know, this die was cast many years ago. And the evolution of the system and the organization of the system is now so integrated into everyone's everyday life that, number one, humans, if all of a sudden, think about this, all we hear is, oh, if there's an EMP or if there's this, or it's going to be pandemonium, the humans are going to have, 90% of humans are going to die. Well, that just shows how fucked up humans are. Because if all of a sudden all of our systems are gone and we are solely reliant on nature, that just shows us how unplugged from nature we are. Because if all of the electric goes out, oh my God, they'll have to live back when there was no electric. Motherfucker, that was 175 years ago. It wasn't that goddamn long ago. And yet, if we don't have clear Wi-Fi, holy shit, somebody dial AT&T. We're so spoiled that we're all basically that 4-year-old kid in Walmart that his mom just won't slap the shit out of. And I think for a lot of people, they're going to get a lot more comfortable and a lot more reliant on the system, which is human nature if you look at it, because all of us were born into and like there's no one watching this right now who was born in 1830. I mean, maybe some of the elite vampires, but they don't watch this show. But I mean, I was born in 1975. There were computers in 1975. So I was raised in an environment that even in 1975, if the power would have been shut off, we'd have been fucked. Well, I lived in a little town, so we might have been all right. But we're fucked now. There's only a handful of people that could actually live off the land. So, I mean, can we go back? Individually, I'd say yes. Collectively, I'd say we're fucked. But that's just my opinion, because most human, and this is what I've learned about the clubs or from the clubs. Oh, and FYI, if you haven't heard, I'm basically shutting down all of the clubs because it's the average human doesn't want to learn. The average human doesn't have curiosity outside of, well, like, what are we going to have for dinner and what's on my feed? So the clubs just, they didn't work because there wasn't enough humans that, I hate to say this, but it's true. There wasn't enough humans that had the knowledge of the system they were living in. And really, maybe they did have the knowledge, but they just didn't fucking care. It was like, hey, as long as Netflix and YouTube works, I'm good. So I thought that there were more people who wanted freedom and would search it out than really there is. I mean, early in my Bitcoin career, when I would go to a conference, the people that were there for the freedom. The majority of them were. Now you go to a conference, it's a circle jerk. It's a bunch of corporations looking to partner with a bunch of other corporations, and really the major banks and the major basically the people who ran the old system now run the Bitcoin corporate system. So these conferences are just a fucking joke now. There's really nothing for the people. There's no really talking about freedom. There, it's all just corporatized now. But I'm glad I was there for some of the early days when prior to being co-opted. But, you know, I mean, luckily the Bitcoin, how it's structured, if you're a freedom-minded person, you can still use the technology as it was intended. So at least there's that. And what I've really learned is fuck, guys, the majority of humans, they're fine with this. They are the whatever the government says. And money, yeah, no shit. Ain't that the truth? But I think that there will be, and the only name I can really come up with is like digital Amish. Like, you'll have a group who won't use any iPhone over the iPhone 5. They're resisting the onslaught of technology. I mean, it's pretty bad when you think you're old school with a flip phone. You're like, man, I am so retro. Look at me. I have to press 1 3 times in order to type a C. But I actually thought you could change the world. When really you can only change yourself. And the world's just going to go the easiest path, because the world, as I'm explaining it, is humans. Humans, if they have a choice of climbing a mountain or walking through a valley, they're going to pick the valley. And I can't say I really blame a lot of them, because they were raised in an environment of comfort and security. Now, this is America-centric. What I'm explaining here is American-centric. I'm not explaining like the lower areas of Africa, all right? Or even like South America. This is very American-centric, maybe European-centric a little bit, but it's when the majority of the people are employed by the system. Of course, they're not going to rebel against the system. And so where we're going is uncharted territory. Where we're coming from is what a lot of us, we fondly look back on as the good old days. And actually, when we were living in the good old days, I bet we were bitching about a bunch of shit. So were the good old days as good as we remember? Or were they just different days? I'd say they were just different days. So the future is bright if you make sure that you're the one holding the flashlight. Because there's going to be a lot of choices in the future that you can make that will lean you towards more freedom and away from more freedom. Now, away from more freedom is going to be very fucking attractive. It's going to be very, especially once they institute the free money. Oh yeah, that's going to hit that. Hell, to tell you the truth, that might even hook me if it's Bitcoin, but I doubt they'll give away Bitcoin. They'll send out a derivative of some sort that's completely trackable. But what's really different than now? Now, the robots are going to be pretty weird, but actually, have you met some of the people that work at Walmart? Some of them I would swap out for a vacuum cleaner. I don't know. I think there's going to be pluses and minuses to the future, because it's really all on your perception. What do you want? That's the answer that everybody needs to figure the fuck out. What do you want? Not what does somebody want you to want? Not what does society want you to want? What does the government want you to want? What do you want? What do you find enjoyable? Because we're reaching a point now where the world is going to be so centralized and so decentralized at the same time. That sounds a lot like chaos, doesn't it? But as an individual, remember, no matter what's going on, 1 minute is 60 seconds. And that's the moment you live in. So no matter how bad it is or how good it is, it's just 60 seconds. There'll be another moment after that moment, and there'll be a lot more moments to come, because you got a lot of moments behind you. You got a lot of moments in front of you. The question is it going to be your moment, or are you going to look around for someone else to tell you what your moment is? Everybody, have a great day. I will be doing another show probably on Wednesday. So everybody, have a great day. Love you guys. Bye-bye.
Introducing the Liberty Laptop, your gateway to online anonymity. Engineered with your privacy in mind, the Liberty Laptop comes equipped with cutting-edge security features, ensuring that your data remains yours and yours alone. No more worries about your personal information being shared without consent. Say goodbye to prying eyes and third-party snoops. Enjoy your online freedom with advanced privacy settings, protecting your every digital move, all at your fingertips. With the Liberty Laptop, you control what others see and don't see. We customize your privacy settings and let only what matters most to you be shared. No more concerns about unwarranted surveillance. We put the power back in your hands. No unwanted access through the laptop's camera and microphone. Powered by the latest technology, the Liberty Laptop ensures performance while respecting your personal boundaries. The Liberty Laptop. Your control. Your privacy. Your world. Visit calixsolutions.io to experience true personal freedom today.